G'day folks, welcome back to Classroom Hatchery Television. This week we're going to be learning about the predators and prey of Atlantic salmon. We're going to have a presentation from the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority about healthy aquatic ecosystems. We're going to of course have another fishy fact from Johnny. We have our hatchery checks, some hatchery maintenance, and we're going to release the alevin from the condo in tank number 1. Let's get started. Starting with hatchery number 1, the filter is running, the air pump is running, and our temperature is 3 degrees Celsius. The eyed eggs in this tank have now hatched, except for 2 of them that have turned white and died. We now have 98 alevin in tank number 1. As some of them have only recently hatched and the temperature is lower than we had in tank number 2, there are a lot of still intact egg membranes inside the condo. Watch for them when I release the alevin. And hatchery number 2, the filter and the air pump are running, and the temperature is 6.5 degrees Celsius. Our alevin in this tank are looking healthy. They're using up their yolk sacs and will soon become fry on the hunt for food, at which point I will begin to feed them. When they start to swim around, there'll be a new danger for them that we'll rectify today. On the filter intake, which is the part of the filter where the water is sucked up, there's a piece that is designed to keep fish from being sucked up into the filter. While this will work for a larger fish, our little fry will be small enough to fit between those slots. I'm going to simply put this small piece of nylon window screening over the intake and then hold it on with this elastic. And this will allow the water to pass through into the filter but keep the fish out. And I'll do this to both of our tanks. So what I do first is I again shut off the power, and then this tube just pops right off like that. Wrap that around like so, and put the elastic on. Water in, fish out. Okay, let's release our alevin from tank 1. So our process will be the same as we did with the other tank. I'm going to shut off the power, rearrange the rocks, undo the nuts and bolts, and then open the 2 halves of the condo, like the wings of a butterfly, and the alevin are going to move down into the rocks. Here we go. Predators are animals that eat other animals. And prey are the animals that the predator eats. For example, when a fox eats a rabbit, the fox is the predator and the rabbit is the prey. The rabbit is the prey of the fox. Atlantic salmon are predators, but they're also the prey of other predators. Predators and prey make up parts of food webs.
All living things exist in a food chain, which connects organisms in the order that they eat food. For example, phytoplankton use sunlight to grow, and they then get eaten by small aquatic insects. Juvenile Atlantic salmon then eat the small aquatic insects, and together, the sun, phytoplankton, small aquatic insects, and juvenile Atlantic salmon all exist in the same food chain. But Atlantic salmon aren't the only things that eat aquatic insects, and other things also eat phytoplankton. So there can be many different food chains in an ecosystem. Together, all of the food chains that exist in one ecosystem create the food web. And at the start of every food web is the sun. Plants such as trees, grass, and phytoplankton use the sun's energy to grow. Herbivores like certain insects, some species of fish, and deer then get their energy by eating those plants. As herbivores grow, some of them get eaten by carnivores, which are animals that eat other animals, like bass or mink. There might even be other carnivores at the top of the food web that eat other carnivores, like a wolf or an eagle. As organisms grow and are eaten, energy moves between them. Energy moves from the sun to the plants, and then into the animals that eat the plants, and then into animals that eat those animals.
When we look at an Atlantic salmon, we can see that they have a large mouth with sharp little teeth that are perfect for capturing their prey. So what do Atlantic salmon eat? What are the prey of Atlantic salmon?
Adult Atlantic salmon feed mainly on other fish. In Lake Ontario, this includes fish like lake herring, rainbow smelt, alewife, and sculpins. Juvenile Atlantic salmon live in cold water streams. As eggs and alevin, they have yolks to nourish them, but as they use up their yolks, they become fry and begin to eat invertebrates. These invertebrates include worms, very small zooplankton, and larger insects including mayfly, dragonfly, and stonefly larvae, caddisfly larvae, and riffle beetles. These invertebrates play very important ecological roles in a stream ecosystem. Not only do they provide a main food source for Atlantic salmon, but they also are the main food source for many species of fish, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and even mammals. So now that we've looked at the prey of Atlantic salmon, let's look at who eats them. They're predators.
A pile of eggs in a red, alevin, fry, and parr are all great meals for a lot of different creatures, including invertebrates, other fish, mink, otter, great blue heron, American bittern, merganser, kingfisher, and northern water snake. As the fish gets larger, it becomes the prey of birds like bald eagle and osprey. A migrating adult, if constrained in movement by shallow water, may be occasionally taken by coyote, wolf, bear, or raccoon. Atlantic salmon are, and have been for a very long time, an important food source for people, sometimes being the reason why people lived in certain areas. They are also heaps of fun to catch. Now that we've learned about the predators and prey of Atlantic salmon in Lake Ontario, we're going to hear from the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority about healthy aquatic ecosystems. And then we'll hear another fishy fact from Johnny.
Welcome to Bring Back the Salmon, benthic macroinvertebrates, or aquatic insects. My name is Mary Gowan, and I'm a Community Learning Coordinator in Education and Training Department with Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. So one of our main focuses are on healthy waterways, not only for the species at risk, like Atlantic salmon, but for all living things and for us. A healthy waterway is essential for a healthy food web. One way that we can monitor the health of salmon ecosystems, or rivers, streams, and lakes, is by looking at water quality. There are a number of ways that we can measure water quality, but today we will specifically be looking at a special group of bugs called benthic macroinvertebrates. So what is a benthic macroinvertebrate? So let's step back and look at the word macroinvertebrate. So they are organisms that are large, macro, and they're enough to be seen with the naked eye. And they lack a backbone or invertebrate. So they live in all types of running water, from fast-flowing streams to slow-moving muddy rivers. So aquatic bugs live on, under, and around rocks and sediment on the bottom of lakes, rivers, and streams. As a result of their habitat choice, they are often regarded as benthos, which refers collectively to organisms that live on, in, or near the bottom, or a benthic zone. There are different types of benthic macroinvertebrates. The first that we'll be looking at are insects. A lot of the insect benthic macroinvertebrates we study are in a larval form of insects that we may recognize outside of the water. For example, the dragonfly spends the first part of its life in the water and its adult life in the air or on land. The adult lays their eggs in the water. When they hatch, these eggs look essentially like the adults but with no wings. Other examples are mayfly, stonefly, and caddisfly larvae can be seen in the pictures at the bottom. There are also adult forms, like the diving beetle, that are benthic macroinvertebrates as well. There are also non-insect benthic macroinvertebrates. Many of these organisms can be found in a variety of aquatic habitats. So examples are worms, aquatic snails, scuds, freshwater mussels, and crayfish. So benthics are an essential part of the water ecosystem. So first, they provide waste management. So they clean up decaying material in the water, and they feed on algae as well. They're also good water filters. So did you know a single mussel can filter 38 liters of water a day? They also act as bioindicators. So all of the different types of benthic macroinvertebrates in an area can tell us how healthy the water system is. And because of their abundance, benthics make up an important link in our food web, often as prey. So food webs show the natural connectedness of organisms in ecosystems by showing what eats what. So animals in a food web are classified as either predators or prey, and sometimes both. Because many benthic macroinvertebrates are insect larvae, they can contribute to the food web differently depending on their life stage. For example, this larva mayfly provides important food for juvenile Atlantic salmon, while mayfly adults are great food for frogs and birds. So what if we don't see a lot of different types of those animals or a lot of biodiversity? This could mean that there is low water quality and can impact the presence of other animals like the Atlantic salmon because they live in the water, but also because they won't have as much food to eat. So when there is less diversity in the ecosystem, it starts to tell us about the health of that system. So we look at bioindicators to find out the health of the ecosystem. So what is a bioindicator? Bio means living and indicator means a way to measure. So this bioindicator is a living thing or process that can tell us about the health of the environment. So how are benthic macroinvertebrates bioindicators? They are useful at water quality indicators because they have relatively long lifespans and are sensitive to changes in the waterways. So they sometimes can't move very far, and they often rely on the muds and rocks in the rivers as places to live. And they require a certain temperature to survive in the water and can be very sensitive to the pollution. So how can these bugs or benthic macroinvertebrates help us? So our TRCA monitoring team collects the benthic macroinvertebrates annually every year at about 150 monitoring stations across the Toronto region. All of those benthics were taken back and were used to monitor the health of the water in the TRCA watersheds and guides our different projects and programs to help keep the water systems healthy. Thank you for watching. We have more resources and events posted on our website at trca.ca.
Hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this week's segment of Fishy Facts. I'm Johnny Nene. This week, we're going to look at a fish with a unique habit of acquiring its prey, the archerfish. There are 7 species of archerfish in the world. They're small, typically between 12 and 18 centimeters, although one species can reach lengths of about 40 centimeters. They have pointed snouts and a protractile mouth with a lower jaw that extends past the upper jaw. Their dorsal fin is set further back on their body than most other fish species. They have deep, laterally compressed silvery bodies with black blotches or lines. This helps them to avoid being eaten by predators by allowing them to blend into their shadowy environments. Their habitat consists of freshwater streams, rivers, or lakes, although some species inhabit fresh or brackish waters of mangroves and estuaries. They are native to India, Southeast Asia, the Philippines, and Australia. Archerfish typically feed on insects, spiders, crustaceans, and small fish and even lizards. What makes archerfish unique is the way they acquire their prey. Archerfish shoot a stream of water from their mouth, like a water gun, to knock down prey items from above the water's surface. Adults can knock prey down from up to 3 meters away. That's about the same height as a basketball net. And this requires a considerable amount of technical ability from the archerfish. Archerfish use their tongue and a small groove in the roof of their mouth to channel the water. Then they close their gills to propel a stream at their prey items. They are very persistent, and they will often shoot their streams repeatedly until they are successful. Young archerfish are less accurate with their streams, so they often hunt in small groups to improve their chances of harvesting prey. Once they knock down a prey item, it's every fish for themselves. The quickest to react gets the food. They will sometimes leap out of the water to try to snatch the prey before it touches the water's surface. As they become older, they become more effective with their aim and their water stream. When we look at something below the water's surface, the object often appears in a slightly different position due to the refracting or bending of light as it passes through the water's surface. Archerfish have a special part of their eye that compensates for this as they focus on their prey sitting above the water's surface. Although archerfish are fairly common in the wild, they are currently being threatened due to pollution and habitat destruction from the prawn aquaculture industry. And because of their unique feeding habits, they are also very popular in the pet trade. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the archerfish in this week's segment. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check out next week's episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Classroom Hatchery Television. And thanks to all of our presenters, from the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, Johnny with his fishy fact, and Elizabeth for helping out again with this week's episode. Next week, we're going to be exploring what happened to Atlantic salmon in Lake Ontario. Why did they vanish? Until then, keep on swimming upstream.